Hello, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today on the program Healthy Living. I am Adesuwa Osa Uwage. It is no longer news that there is a variant to the COVID-19 pandemic ravaging the world, and the number of cases is rising on a daily basis, astronomically. And some persons in this beautiful country of ours, they believe that there is nothing like COVID-19. Not too long ago, last week exactly, a young lady, a popular makeup artist, came on social media, with a mask and oxygen and all of that, to say that Corona never finished, or coronavirus is still very much with us. Coping with it is a problem. We couldn't cope when it was when it just came up. A lot of persons still didn't believe, though the federal government and other states government did put some measures on ground to make sure that we combat this coronavirus pandemic. But unfortunately, our citizens are not adhering strictly to these protocols put on ground, and now we have a variant. And the other day somebody was asking me what is a variant. I tried my best possible to explain, but COVID-19 is still very much there. We're talking about it today because some of us still don't want to go with the protocols. When you see somebody wearing face masks, some persons are quick to laughing at that person. Oh, now you go carry them, that kind of a thing. But coronavirus, I'm telling you, is still very much with us. A lot of persons did not enjoy their Christmas holiday. Why? Because they were on lockdown. They were on lockdown all over the world. Some places, even Lagos State in Nigeria, here in our country, here in Nigeria, Lagos State was on partial lockdown. So do you still doubt that coronavirus is very much available? Coronavirus is still with us. COVID-19 is ravaging the world even as we speak. And then some persons still doubt. Anyway, we're going to be talking to Dr. Barry Ojo. He's a family physician, and he's going to be telling us more about this variant. And he's also going to tell us exactly what to do, particularly for those who have underlying illnesses. Because if you go by statistics, those who have underlying illnesses were those that were really, really affected. They are the first set of persons that got affected when it all started. And now there's a variant that is, it has changed from what it used to be. This one is even stronger, more deadlier than the previous one, okay? And for those of you who have underlying illnesses, you need to sit down and watch so that you know what to do and where to go to. And then the aged and the very young ones. That's our focus today on the program, Healthy Living. Dr. Barry Ojo, welcome.
Thank you very much.
It's nice to have you join us.
It's a pleasure.
All right. In 2019, we had COVID-19, and then it sailed into 2020. And for the whole of 2020, COVID-19 was still very much there, ravaging countries, ravaging people. People are dying like flies and all of that. And then in 2021, we were all hoping that, 2021, more so with the vaccine now available, COVID-19 will, end, or at least it will reduce to its barest minimum, and people can go about their normal duties, as usual. But unfortunately, that is not to be in 2021. Well, doctor, before you answer all of that, let's say the figures as at yesterday.
Yes, before we talk about figures of yesterday in Nigeria, let's go globally. As a speaker, this world, it's shocking to hear that over 19 million people have been affected across the globe. And in this 19 million, America is worst affected. American people, over 23 million Americans have been affected with 383,000 deaths. And Russia is about 3.4 million people that has been affected. UK is about 3 million. But look at the casualties. United Kingdom alone have lost 81,000 people. And here you're talking about persons doubting whether there's coronavirus or not. India is affected with over 10 million people. Then the countries like Saudi Arabia has higher numbers. Even Brazil in Latin America has 8 million people being affected. But if you come back to Africa, it's amazing to see that South Africa has been affected 1.2 million people with over 16,000 deaths. That's rather unfortunate. That is why this discussion is very important. Because in South Africa, there are a lot of people that are carrying some underlying illness. Don't forget, South Africa have the highest HIV population in the world, over 12 million people. So that's also a risk factor. We're going to be looking at various risk factors that may have led to the widespread of those illnesses. In Africa here, of course, Nigeria now has 100,087 with about 1,358 deaths. That's very unfortunate. But Tanzania has the least. So
even with the fact that we're not even testing.
Yes, even we're not doing adequate testing and all that. Just yesterday, Lagos had 657, while Edo recorded 18 newly cases. Then if you look at other countries like Cameroon and Ghana, our neighbors, yes, Ghana has about 55,000 people affected. But what's the number of deaths? Ghana just had 336. The city of Cameroon have less than 500 deaths. But that is why we are saying that our own death has gone to almost 1,400. So let's not leave these things to chance. Then if you look at some other countries like Tunisia, over 157,000 people being affected. Well, that's in the Mediterranean because COVID-19 spreads wider in cold regions. But look at Libya. Libya, 104,000 people has been affected. A country of less than 10 million people. So coming back to Nigeria, Lagos still has the highest number of affected cases. The whole country, as at yesterday night, 100,087 people have been affected with COVID-19. In 2019, December 31st, COVID-19 was first discovered in Wuhan, in China. Today, even China has one of the least number of cases in the world. So up to now, China cases were controlled. But what I'm talking about, an illness that does not have a cure. Even the vaccine we're talking about now, we want to look at the nature of the efficacy of the vaccine. You talk about the variant. What is the variant of COVID-19? It's called B117, lineage B117. That's the name. But the most frightening thing about the present variant, like you said, a particular virus or a particular organism have changed, has metamorphosed to a different, and now the way it spreads. Now, this particular lineage, what particular variant affects, even crossing the blood-brain barrier of the brain. I mean, it's like that's what normally leads to blindness because it will not affect the optic nerve. The optic nerve is the major nerve that supplies, that's in charge of sight. So that makes it worse. So when people begin to talk about COVID, there is no coronavirus, so I don't know what you're talking about because now the world is a standstill. The world population is about 7 billion. Now we have 90 million people, as I just said, being affected. It's not a funny thing that United Kingdom alone is having over 3 million infected cases with 81,000 deaths, our corona masters. So now what has worsened the case of Nigeria? A lot of people came in during the festivity period. So that actually increased it. Then the level of testing has increased. Another sad thing you need to know today, that's why there is even this reported cases of COVID-19 patients that have recovered has been reinfected. So, but we've heard on the grapevine that some variants, these variants have been recorded somewhere in Lagos. But that's why they saw that partial lockdowns because the government became afraid that this variant is more the mobility. The rate at which it kills a patient is faster than the initial COVID-19. Because what that one does is go around the body, goes to the lung, collapse the lung, what we call atelectasis. So patient dies more of the respiratory complication. But this prevalent variant goes to the central nervous system. It's as worse as it was causing brain death. Then also more or less it leads to blindness. So when the public begin to talk about, when some person begin to doubt COVID-19, I wonder the kind of tumors they have because I was in the bank this morning and I was so much impressed with the bank. Virtually nobody was in the bank without the face mask. You see the use of sanitizers. So a lot of churches has also followed suit. So but we'll come to that in the point of our discourse. So coronavirus, we're telling the viewers at home and our listeners across the globe that coronavirus is real. No illness since the beginning of the generation has taken us to the cleaners like this. When SARS came in 2002, it wasn't as bad as this. In a period of few months, it was out of it. Even when we had MERS in 2012. So at the end of the day, Saudi Arabia were able to curb it. Maybe some neighboring countries had MERS. But today, the virus has spread like water on fire. And that is the reason why, if you look at America today, they can't wait for a new government to come in so that they change the policy in which I think they are fighting COVID-19. Because virtually every household has been affected in America. And we don't want Nigeria to get to that situation. That's why I also use this avenue to appeal to the government that apart from the people, the government has to be more proactive. For instance, the system of testing has to increase. You just mentioned earlier that, they've increased the testing. They should provide, there should be a provision for. At least everybody, most times, it should be a compulsory test. People present to the hospital. Then there should be centers. Because at the end of the day, the earlier you detect this problem, the better. And that's why you are talking about Look at Madagascar case. Madagascar now have over 26,000 people affected. Why? Because they were used to this, their concussion and all that. But the concussion don't go to be, it's not curative. So the answer to the problem, the antidote to the problem would have been a potent vaccine. We see top Nigerians like Atiku Abubakar going to take their vaccines in Dubai. Yes, we pray that in the next couple of months, the vaccines will be available in Nigeria. So that a lot of people will get vaccinated. At least let's get vaccinated on the first type of COVID-19. First, start getting worried about the variant. Because the variant is lineage B117, and that is a strange name. That's why when you Google it, it looks as if it's strange. Because even the Americans are confused. So even Russia that is very effective in the medical practice, they are finding it difficult to compete, even though their level of casualty is still lower compared to Italy, France, and Germany. The tens of casualties. So the records are there. So what we're trying to say in Africa is that we are in a third world country. The best thing that can help us is prevention. So when you want to talk about those who have underlying pathology, I think the key thing here is that no matter the kind of illness somebody is carrying, if for instance somebody is diabetic, and you are regular with your drugs, you are regular with your lifestyle, you are regular with your hospital attendant, you are very careful with your food. Once those illnesses are not complicated, many a time, of course, such person should be anyway. If you are in the public, you are going to be on face mask, you have to wash your hands when you can't come home. I tell you, once those illnesses are well controlled, I know they are the most vulnerable, but at least no matter what, if anytime they are affected, it might not be as worse as when, for instance, she guys has 200, maybe fasting, but she guys has 300. We are taking an example of diabetes now. So like every other illness, even when somebody says you're positive, the person is on his drug regularly. No matter what it is, once your CD4 counts are in better, because all this is all about immunity. That's why you see the elderly are worse affected. If you get to the UK and the US now, virtually people above 65 hardly walk around anymore, because the virulence of the new variant is terrible. That's why you see they now decide to ban those who are coming to UK and those who are going out of UK, because in fact they've never seen a thing like this. And that's why third world countries like us, that we are trying to struggle to our health sector, because our own health sector we are still trying to struggle. So we don't want this kind of a pandemic to become widespread. Already there's already a community spread, and that's why we are appealing to the public that coronavirus is not just free. What are you doing to combat this illness? Are you now living in a style that you're spreading the illness? On Saturday, I tell you, in my area, look at the ceremonies that took place. Crowd everywhere. It's unfortunate. Nobody's obeying the rules. There's no social distancing. Now people are struggling for food. People are gathering to collect drinks. So that's what you ask yourself. Are Nigerians really thinking that this thing is real?
I don't think,
or they're just trying to disabuse their mind?
I don't think Nigerians are thinking that COVID-19 is real. Apart from just a handful of persons, the others do not believe that COVID-19 is real. Let's take the Christmas and New Year celebration, for example.
It was terrible.
There was so much crowd everywhere.
Yes.
There was large gathering everywhere, but this didn't happen in Lagos. So I'm just wondering, is it that we are kind of immune to all of this, or we just do not care?
Not really. Look at the environment. The weather is hot, so a lot of things are going for the black race, right? The Nigerians and those who live in Sahara regions. Then, of course, the pigmentation. Then a lot of people feel that where in Nigeria is less than 1,400 compared to countries like America.
And some
but you forgot
that government is not transparent.
The government is still trying their best. Government are making the laws, but are obeying them. Government has said no more than 50 people. On Saturday, they were crowd everywhere. People were doing ceremonies. Government has said get sanitizer. Government has said wear face mask. Nobody's obeying it. That's the problem. So at the end of the day, we're talking about an illness here. Just imagine what has happened to countries like the UK and the US. So that's what we're saying, that we must use this kind of avenues like this to appeal to the public. That look, coronavirus is real. And for those who have underlying illnesses, it's even worse. So your precautionary measures should be more. You should step on your precautionary measures. You can't go out without maybe entering the public transport. Probably you're hypertensive, or maybe you're more asthmatic. You see, we've lost so many doctors, for instance. A lot of my colleagues have died of coronavirus, maybe in the last 3 weeks. So somebody cannot be asthmatic and you go to a public place and you're not on your face mask. You're creating problems, because at the end of the day, such persons that have underlying illness, they're more vulnerable. So why would somebody go to a gathering and not social distance his or herself? Maybe the person is having any of the respiratory disease, maybe pneumonia, or maybe someone that is being treated for congestive cardiac failure. So any of these pathologies, one has to be careful, because obviously once you have a disease, whether you like it or not, your immunity is down. Most of the illness. Don't forget even medication. If you're on medication, medication has a way of also playing on your immunity. So you must do everything possible to avoid those things. Therefore, our children are resuming schools. School, parents, and teachers have to work together. Because this time around, I tell you, and this is whether you like it or not, there's an upsurge in the virus. Forget the values you are seeing by this NCC. It's obviously higher than that. Whatever in the rural areas, a lot of people are not volunteering themselves for testing. So, and a lot of facilities are not available. So that's why we are saying that as the schools are reopening, school authorities, parents, everyone, all hands should be on deck to see the reality, to do the put into practice all the preventable measures, including the tertiary institution. Because if you look at what has taken South African value to 1.2 million, it's their lifestyle. They go clubbing, they are to do ceremony. In fact, they're always in the streets. And so they go into a lot of gatherings.
So are we practicing in Nigeria?
Yes, but the South Africa case is that the South Africa case is worse. That's gospel truth. Because they are the only country that has hit 1.2 million. The second to them is Algeria, which is about 400,000 people. So we are grateful that, yes, we hit the 100,000 mark. That's a whole lot.
Now, but the federal government have said that by 18th of this month, all tertiary institutions should be reopened. Students should go back to school. I'm particularly worried, even though they've stayed at home for almost a year. I'm very, very worried about the measures put on ground by these institutions to make sure that this COVID-19 is checked, because a lot of students will be going back to school from different areas. I'm sure some even traveled abroad for the holiday and all of that. They will be coming back. What are the measures, or what are the measures I don't know what measures they are put in place, but what do you suggest? What do you advise as a medical person?
Yes, I will advise the vice chancellors and the leaders of these institutions, or the management of these institutions, to just follow the COVID-19 protocols, what the PTF has provided. That they should be in every, of course, even in the class, they should be spacing. Those social distances have to be there. Of course, they will make provision for adequate sanitizers to go around the institution, especially during classes. Of course, face mask is compulsory. So no face masks, no lectures. So this they have to enforce this. Of course, definitely federal government is going to, for the federal government institutions, they're going to be special fund that will release to make provision for the leaders of the university, like the vice chancellor, and of course the governing council. So I think that the tertiary institution will rise up to the occasion. But my worry is the secondary and the second primary, because now we have a new variant, and we also have a new wave of spread, whether it's the new variant or the old variant. So parents must rise up to the occasion to work with school heads to ensure that even when we have to support the schools, those private schools, to be able to make sure our children get the best and stay safe. That's the most important for their children, because they're in a younger generation. So all the rules will be strictly obeyed, even up to their classes. They should be spaced. So at the end of the day, our children will be safe, because they are the leaders of tomorrow. And they are
at a point in this country, at a point in this state, the measures were adhered to stricto sensu. When you take public transport, you don't have more than 2 or 3 on a seat. And then everybody is all maxed up, even the drivers, the conductors, and all of them. But after a while, all of this just went into thin air. And I begin to wonder, is it that we just take something for a while, and then after that, nothing happens?
No,
nobody bothers about face masks anymore.
No,
everywhere you go, you see almost everybody holding small bottles of sanitizer and all of that. But there's nothing whatsoever.
No, the truth of the matter is that
I was just of the opinion that if we had followed in that footstep, stricto sensu, and there was strict enforcement, I do not think we would be worried like this.
No, the truth of the matter is that when the illness began, there was this phobia for the illness. That's the truth. And you know the way Nigerians are, anything that comes, well, that's their own. We can always cope. So there was this complacency, because they now discovered that the level of spread was not occurring the way they expected. The level of casualty rates, yes, the casualty rates were less. In fact, some persons will say, well, most people that died, they have some underlying illness, which is not true. So at the end of the day, but of course, the law enforcement agencies, they were not carrying out their rules and regulations. Government brought their laws, but they were not well enforced. So people just said, well, what we're getting better, we're good to go. And of course, they are really tired. Don't forget, a lot of persons in this country, the majority of people in the country live less than $1 a day. They have to go to the street to look for something to survive. So I think you cannot now tell the driver to say, oh, I'm going to balance it, I will carry 3 passengers. No, it's not possible. Except the government now create a new law that for enforcement. That's why I'm using this program to appeal to individuals. That nobody should put a gun on our head before we know that we need to obey the COVID-19 protocols. Because it's very important to us. Because we don't know anybody that can be affected. Because it's one of those things that most of the time, somebody that has COVID-19 may be most times be asymptomatic, may not have any obvious symptom. And even though somebody is having loss of smell, which is the commonest in COVID-19 or coronavirus, as in Augusta. If I have loss of smell and enter the vehicle, I may not say it to anybody. I may not know whether it's one of those pointers. That is not to say that those who cannot smell food or any fragrance is coronavirus positive. No. So what I'm trying to say is that it's not just made for one person alone. It has to be all encompassing. Everybody has to be involved in this. Because the way we are going, the other day, remember this one, last time we were here, about barely 2 months ago or less, it was about 60,000 people. Though a lot of people have recovered. But the biggest fear is that we now have cases of people being reinfected. Very recently, we heard about somebody in the US, it was 2 persons in the UK, who were vaccinated and they got affected with the illness. Of course, there was now an answer to it that probably they have contracted a new variant. But we also saw in not too long ago. Somebody who was affected by coronavirus before and got killed and got infected at this present wave, not necessarily with the variant. So that is the reason we have to carry out a lot of precautionary measures. In fact, we should go beyond the issue of COVID-19 protocol. There's so many things to be done. For instance, somebody come home, go to his wash his hand, wash his feet before going into the compound. That's going to be effective. Then you are in a public place, you must be on your face mask. That's what I saw in the bank this morning. It was compulsory. I have not been to the bank for a long time. But it's compulsory. It was compulsory. Even the security men at the gates. You cannot even come near the bank without the face mask. It has to be adequately wear, not on job. It has to be wear worn. So that was good enough. And that's what I was seeing in the diaspora. In Europe and America and every other part of the world, even in Asia, people now, face mask is not like a uniform. So I don't know what has happened to Africans. Because the reason why we won't have a lot of spread in the whole across Africa is this thing you're talking about.
I'm not even wondering why.
Because a lot of people are.
Most of us are not on face mask.
No, but we are social distancing.
The number to call is 052290573. The number is going to appear on your screen in a moment. Please call us and then contribute, because there's a variant now to the COVID-19 pandemic. Yet, a lot of us are not taking it seriously. You know, those of us who use public transport were so guilty. Those of us who go to public places are very guilty. It's just only in few. There's this a supermarket or mall or shop I used to go to, and then it was very, very important for you to use your face mask and all of that. But surprisingly, I was there a few days ago, and I just walked in, you know, I was wondering, somebody ought to have stopped me for not using my face mask or anything. I remember when I quickly brought it out of my pocket and used, and some other persons were like, you know, that kind of face, now wow, that kind of now wow face, you know. But this thing is real. Yes. It's real. We have so relaxed on it. Now let's talk about the vaccine, okay? In America, they are taking the vaccine, and it's not even enough. Yes. Okay, it's not enough, and Pfizer is being taxed to do more, and they're finding it so difficult to meet target. Okay, that's in America. Yes, because here in Nigeria we do not produce anything. No, definitely they're going to provide for us. And they're going to provide for us. How adequate is this vaccine? No, the problem is that, and apart from being adequate, how effective? What is the efficacy of this vaccine? You know, you're talking about vaccination. Before they ever give it to humans, they've done on animal trials. Yes. But the issue is that the American health sector has been overwhelmed. The whole society is being. Don't forget, the economy is branded. So it's not. I am even afraid for my country now. So okay, but Nigerians they can be able to raise funds, because it's all about fund. You raise funds and send to the diaspora so that they can make them available. And some people have said that the country is very rich. So what I'm trying to say is when it comes to raising funds, exactly. So I expect the federal government to rise up to that occasion, to raise a lot of funds, create an emergency fund for that, so that a lot of Nigerians can start getting vaccinated.
especially the very high risk and the more ambulance for the population. Of course, the health workers, the pressmen like you and all that, those of us that are always on the move.
Okay, there are rumors already in the social media that the vaccines are employed to like some other.
One thing you should know about those things is that these are medical things, and before the government in Europe, UK, and the US. No, the Europeans and Americans will agree on a vaccine. For example, Pfizer. Pfizer is one of the biggest companies in the world. There's no case saying that fact that definitely there's some room for efficacy. So definitely there will be distraction because after all, the illness looks strange. There's a lot of mystery in the illness. So in process of trying to demystify the illness by way of bringing a vaccine, don't forget, no illness gets a cure without vaccination. So when it comes to these viral illnesses, so first of all, you get the vaccine.
So how do we disabuse the minds of Nigerians that eventually when these vaccines come, it's very important that we make ourselves available to take these vaccines, because some already are saying, no, I will not take. They want to do this, they want to do that.
Yeah, but it's not the matter that is the essence of programs like this. We have to do enough awareness campaign, because definitely you have to, just like when you want to do surgery for a patient or maybe variant any procedure, there must be an informed consent. So that's where you have to informed consent, means that you are passing adequate information surrounding what you want to do for the patient. The same thing with the general public. That's the sort of program that is like healthy living. That we're telling the public that the vaccine, we pray it comes as early as possible. Definitely the vaccine is obviously safe, because a lot of people are started taking it in the larger one. The article took it the other day, and so what we are praying for is that in the next 6 months we'll see that the vaccine has some large portion of efficacy.
Like
yes, because if you take a vaccine, you have to look at that vaccine, especially for a vaccine that is just new, a nascent vaccine, a young vaccine in the system. So you must take it and see how it goes, because some persons are taking the vaccine somewhere part of the world, like in America, and they got infected. So let's just believe that once the vaccine gets to this part of the world, we hope that it be available to the common man as soon as possible, so that we'll now feel some sigh of relief. But that is not to say that Nigerians should go about their normal activity without obeying the COVID-19 protocols. That's where my problem is, because at the end of the day, if there is a spread, the prevention always is the best strategy. That's why they will tell you prevention is better than cure. So it's always good to prevent an illness.
Is that
because the primary prevention is key.
Problem, because it's just a few people, just a handful that are doing all of this, and this handful of persons who are adhering to these COVID-19 protocols may get infected because obviously they will have to mix.
No.
They will have to talk to people.
Because if we're talking about prevention, here we have primary, secondary, and tertiary prevention.
Yes.
So what we're saying about this protocol thing is that it helps you. That's what you want to do in terms of primary prevention. So the vaccine too will also help in primary prevention. But what is most important here is that we should try and obey the rules of the game, so that at the end of the day, we'll have the community spread will be interrupted. Because where you see an illness that has some protocols. So okay, do this, do that. For instance, if you vaccinate somebody against measles, it doesn't mean that the child will not have measles. But once they have measles, the level of severity of the illness will be less. The same thing with TB and all of that. All vaccination that you know. So don't talk of a viral vaccine. If a patient has vaccine against hepatitis B, what is the full proof? What the patient has something that breaks down his immunity. The patient can also be affected with the virus in the long run. But so don't talk of a new vaccine that even those that are the authorities of the medical profession, both in Europe and America, they are still trying to see how they can fit into the vaccine. Russia has gotten a lot of them. They started massive vaccination in far away Russia, even countries like France. So let's hope that for Nigerians, it's just that at times we might want to delay. But I pray that the government should raise an emergency fund so that we can get this vaccine brought to Nigeria, and of course Nigerians start getting vaccinated. Because now Nigeria is over 100,000 people affected, though a lot of them are recovered.
I'm just wondering how many states would like to key into this project.
Yeah, because of course, definitely Edo here, definitely we're going to key into the project. That I know, because we have an active government. So we are just praying for the vaccine to be available. That's the most important thing. Like you said, they have to start saying, oh, we want to give, because there's no way enough for them there at the moment. They are trying to see how you can start going around.
We live in a country where we have problems with power. I'm just trying to imagine what's going to happen when this vaccine.
No, when it comes to storage of vaccines.
We need to store this vaccine properly and adequately so that the purpose for it will not be defeated.
No,
unfortunately,
vaccines are
the power sector is going to be
vaccines are well stored in Nigeria. That I can tell you. They are stored in silos, and the vaccine is government control. So very many times.
But do you know that the common vaccines that will take in this country, sometimes they fail?
That is because of the chain. So somebody may have broken the chain. No, I agree with you. That's man-made. That's man-made. No, it's the chain. No, when the chain breaks.
No, yes. You're talking like a medical doctor.
No, but when the chain breaks, it's fail.
That most of the time, these vaccines, some of them are not
well stored.
Well stored.
I agree with you. It's the chain that breaks. But once it leaves. Once the vaccine is with the Ministry of Health, when that's the Ministry of Health, of course the vaccine is intact. So you're not taking it to primary center where they're being consumed, like you said, maybe power supply and all that, then there can be a fault. There's already a breaking chain. But for vaccines, they are purely government control. That's why even in private hospitals, it will be an aberration that you are vaccinating the child, you are collecting money. Because it's purely supposed to be free. Then you can collect some money for your syringes and all that. But it's a government control. Let the government control exercise. Let alone a vaccine that we're not even seeing.
Do you know
we are not seeing, we are not looking at in the foreseeable future.
Do you know that it has been rumored that in some areas, even this name form that is being given, some persons pay for it.
That's the way.
Some persons pay for it. So I'm just trying to imagine something as important as this vaccine. What's going to happen with it?
No, that's the Nigerian story. But the truth of the matter is that if coronavirus vaccine to be supplied to this country, I tell you this one, it's going to be it's going to be well monitored the way they are monitoring the testings. If you see the way they monitor the testings, they will tell you, okay, if you have to do tests for you, if you're not an expert, maybe you don't live in Nigeria, you can pay so and so amount. But if you live in Nigeria, certainly it is free.
But the testing centers have been reduced because there are some centers we used to see along the road.
No, those centers were not testing proper. This one, they just to take the nature. Yes, no, it's not necessarily some history. Well, if you having fever, you have something. It's just centers to create more awareness. That's what we're saying. Now, if they are going to bring vaccine tomorrow, some centers will have to they will reopen. So they will now be creating awareness. The need for you to take that. But I tell you, coronavirus is such a life-threatening illness, even though it's not a death sentence, that you and I will trek from here to already go and take the vaccine. So when we eventually get to bring the vaccine to Nigeria, for Nigerians can't wait to take the vaccine. You know the countries, if not for the issues with leadership and all that, Nigerians are love people. They suffer and smile. So they want to take. So long as vaccines be taken by most people, there are no issues. A lot of people are started taking the vaccines now. Once they come to Nigeria, start taking. So some of us will kill, especially for the health workers, because we are most prone to that illness. So we're going to do everything possible to get the vaccines taken. But I tell you, it will never be for money, because vaccines are mostly controlled by government. I know that there will still be some corruption here and there, but the earlier we get the vaccines from Europe and America, the better for us. We're talking about vaccination, because that's the only way out. That's the little light you are seeing in the tunnel. Because for cure, it's not possible. Madagascar today has 26,000.
Let me take your mind back a little bit. When we started, you did say that quite a number of doctors have died as a result of
yes.
Do doctors now have the protective gadgets already?
No, even when you are going to have all the PPE or whatever, the personal protective equipment and whatever, you see, at times you might just be in your consulting room, and somebody can come and say, "Oh, please, can you help me do this?" Maybe you are in the office, and you want to do a prescription. Maybe the person has been exposed. Then again, some doctors that died have some underlying illness. Like one of the doctors that died somewhere in Middlebelt was asthmatic. So when those illnesses now come, it exacerbates. Recently, one of my friends called me from one of the towns in central Nigeria and said, "Oh, she had coronavirus. Like, it was quite scary. Thank God she's alive." So what I'm trying to say is that the mode at which somebody can contract a virus, it doesn't have a pattern.
Are we prepared to fight this variant?
Yes, we are. Why? But we just pray that the variant should not become widespread. Because even the case that they said they recorded in Lagos.
When I saw some on international television and all of that, I was quite scared.
No, that's it.
Because a lot of thoughts came.
But you know the story of meningitis. Anything that is going to affect the brain meninges, that's why I don't go there. It kills faster because it leads to brain death. That's that. Unlike it is struggle and struggle comes to the lungs. You take this, take that, do all the funny maneuvers, take all this inhalation. Anything that goes to the brain, It's a problem. It affects the brain cells, and I will cut off oxygenation.
So we just have to be very careful.
Of course, at the end of the day, they will say from the new findings affects the optic nerve, and the patient gets blind. So even when the patient goes to survive, the patient is already handicapped from a strange virus that has taken over 90 million people, affected over 90 million people, and people. Over almost 1.6 million people across the world is there. It's not a funny situation. So we are saying that the earlier they begin to provide the vaccines for us, because now, even though we are in a new strain, we also say, oh, we are already in the generation of pop, we are now seeing the vaccine. And China is doing well too. That's the country to look at. Even though the whole illness emanated from China, look at their vaccination pattern. But they're supposed to be a third world country. But they are doing well with the vaccination. So I pray that when it gets to us, Nigeria like copying China lately. So they should copy China. Because Nigeria also have the money to be able to get these vaccines as soon as it's more readily available. I think we might not just wait for America. We can work with China. We can work with some other third world countries that can make these vaccines available to us. So because we don't have time. But because we have pigmentation, we are black, you can see the weather still very uncomfortable, the environment is just there. You know, somebody said the other day, God is merciful to us. And that's why we have to be more careful with ourselves. Because at the end of the day, community spread is real. So we're not talking about COVID-19, somebody's talking about COVID-21. But I said, look, we are already over 1 year into this illness. 13 months, this illness is taking the whole world to the cleaner. So we just pray that in a no distant time.
We have our phone number on the screen, 0522290573. You can call in to ask questions or to make your contributions on how we can deal with this variant of the COVID-19. We're hoping and praying that it doesn't spread, though it has been said that it was detected in some areas in Lagos. We've not heard such stories in Edo or some other parts of the country, but some persons are returning to the country, some are going out of the country. Although at the airports there are, very strict protocols that must be adhered to at the airports, but also hoping and praying that it does not spread. So how do we cope with it? How do we combat with it? How do we save ourselves from all of this? Because whatever affects one person will definitely affect everybody. It's COVID-19 we're talking about, and the variant is even more deadlier than the one that we saw before. And quite a number of persons came down with it, even though some were able to take care of themselves without going to the hospital. But this time around, you will go to the hospital. And unfortunately, we live in a country where that emergency number does not work, because sometimes we even put it to test. A colleague of mine put it to test on a program like this. We'll call that Nigerian emergency number, and honestly, it didn't even ring. I think we should start from there. Let's have an emergency number.
Yes.
That you can even the number that was displayed by NCDC, last year, that number didn't go through. A lot of persons testify to that fact that the number didn't go through.
Yes,
when it goes through, nobody picks it at the other end.
Yes,
all of these are part of trying to find solution to this problem.
It's part of the shortfalls in the health sector anyway, but even it's still the Nigerian factor. Even the security agents put
it's about time we stop this.
So we just hope that because the medical issues we're already in an emergency situation. So we hope that the lines can become more activated, so that if lines are put on, there will be response, because many a time, if you watch what has happened to the Europe and America, most of the call ambulances, they rescue their people and
almost
all that.
Immediately.
So we are praying that, we're hoping and praying that we'll get at least 30 to 40% of that situation that is obtainable over there in the diaspora. But the most important thing is while we are not praying to run into a strange illness, we also
but we should be prepared.
And we also to be prepared. Just follow the protocols, because it's very key. And again, if somebody has some illness here and there that you don't understand, before you call neighbor, you can get to neighbors. They can rescue, or maybe family or friends, so that they can rescue the person in the nearest hospital.
Okay, let's talk about community spread, because as it stands, I'm sure one or two persons may not understand what community spread means. So take us.
No, community spread is simply defined as an illness that spreads within the community. That illness is not a localized. It doesn't emanate from that particular community, so to say, but it must keep on moving from various households to the other. And very many a time, if rules are not obeyed by way of preventive measures, it's spread across. And most times it's spread and it's worse when it comes to overcrowded areas. For sparsely populated areas, it might not be as that, but once an environment is crowded and some of these rules are not of the game are not obeyed, for instance, the hygienicity and all that, then the said illness will just move from one environment to the other. And most times, the fatality rate will be increased. So that's what we're appealing to the general public, that let's see all the rules that we know to obey them, so that we'll be able to cut off the rate at which this illness is spreading in our community. So, but again, the most important thing at this moment is that we just urge the federal government to swing into action fast as soon as they are ready to give us vaccines. As in the diaspora, they should make it available to the common man, because that is one way to go around it. Because Nigerians, if you go to Lagos, you go to areas like Abuja, go to areas like Port Harcourt, the places are densely populated. So even a place like Surulere, you can have this evil body-to-body collision and all that. So it's always, the earlier we begin to get vaccination. Don't forget, vaccination has a very big role to play when it comes to prevention. Because once you get people vaccinated, of course, the community spread that you're talking about now definitely will be.
Once we talk about vaccine, people will think that when you take the vaccine, you're good. Nothing is going to happen.
No. If you take a vaccine, then you obey the rules. You're not going to take a vaccine and be getting exposed. But if you take a vaccine, that will not stop you from being on your face mask when you are going to a crowded area. That will not stop you from not obeying the social distance. But it's a viral illness. What if maybe you are in places where there might be the type of variant that your vaccine may not be called? So what was the vaccine is just like a safe landing. We're looking at it as something that we can start from.
It does not.
It's not a foolproof, for instance. Even in the old illness, we're not talking about tuberculosis, for instance. The TB as an illness. A lot of people that had TB vaccinated even from childhood still come down with even children TB and even the adults by TB. So even meningitis. A lot of people recently their vaccines for meningitis. We're able to control the severity, the rate at which the illness might cause death or the fatality will be reduced, because such vaccine boosts the immunity of the patient. That's why people are afraid. Maybe that, if you go and give me something that looks like coronavirus, I hope it's not turn to a problem. But a lot of people are taking it and they are doing well. The president-elect of America have taken it. A lot of people have taken it. So gradually, it can spread to the common man, of course.
So for the purpose of emphasis, what are exactly those things we should do to keep ourselves safe?
Maybe we'll just remind ourselves, first of all, for the elderly people, no movement from your home except they are compulsory.
There are some very
no unnecessary movements.
I remember talking to an elderly woman who got stranded on the road. What are you doing outside? And she was like, won't I go out again? I have to go out. So they could be very, very stubborn.
Yeah, so if you are going out, try and obey the rules. If you are going to, no matter what, wherever you're going to, try and be on your face. Face mask is compulsory. Of course, you social distance. You stay away from people. Don't go into that crowd of people, because you must, as an elderly person, know that your immunity is already going down. Then 3, of course, you go out, you get as much, no matter how improvise your sanitizer. Then when you come back home, make sure you wash your hands, wash your feet before you go home. Then, of course, for those who have underlying illnesses, make sure you go to regular hospital attendance, so that at the end of the day, such pathology that the individual is carrying will be under control. Then for the young people, of course, parents have to control the movement of their children, not to be exposed to other environment. Then so the issue of government should try and put security agents and law enforcement agents to enforce these laws to the general population. Bring the law, then of course it creates more funds for those persons that are in forefront of fighting the coronavirus, whether as health workers or as social workers or even as all categories of workers that are responsible for the fight against the pandemic. Then again, the issue of sanitizer is key. Because even you said the other time we talked about hand washing day, WHO. So let's continue to wash our hands. After all, hygienicity is key. Then let's keep our environments clean. Then let's not be involved in all these too many social activities where you gather a lot of people. I have a burial to do by the weekend. I'm going to strictly on COVID-19 protocols. Because at the end of the day, you never can tell that somebody might be exposed to such illness. So let's begin not to carry away with our social gatherings, social activity, and forgetting that there's a strange illness that is ravaging the whole world. So that's the general advice. Then, most importantly, we should be able to accept it, that COVID-19 has come. Somebody has said, it has come, I said before we go. If an illness comes, it's already part of
living with it.
Exactly. You don't apart from illness like smallpox, chickenpox is still there. A lot of illnesses they are still there. Even leprosy is still there. In my village, Ocean Specialty was known for a specialist hospital. Well, leprosy settlement, where you have the specialist hospital, the government hospital. So leprosy is there. So all these old illness in the Bible, they're still there. So why are we thinking I want to run away from it? But we can prevent it. So that we have our great, especially for the elderly. where you are very, because don't forget, most elderly people have one chronic illness or the other. So once somebody is already in the middle age, anything above 40, so you maybe one illness or the other is already maybe one chronic illness. So at the end of the day, your immunity is low. Then your movement around, you should reduce it to the bed. It has to become necessary movements, so that you have your graceful aging, you have your longevity. Because whether you like it or not, 2020 hospital reported death is the highest since 1960.
You know, with COVID-19, a lot of substance abuse was reported. And I'm just, with this variant now, what do you think is going to happen?
Well, substance abuse on its own, we're going to discuss it, but it's another story for another day. But here, I know that, when somebody is idle-minded, where a lot of people became secluded, people now had living sedentary life, they started taking to things that can make them happy. And that's normally the origin of substance abuse. Either peg will be flesh or something that can get somebody elected, something that can get anybody elected. So the local gene came in. Some people will now, because started smoking, some people started taking excess of alcohol. A man fell into the gutter near my house, say because he's taking a go-go, they say they cure COVID-19. So a lot of issues come back. So substance abuse, everything is present in substance abuse. Longevity is not one of them. Because everything that you use, whether a level of depressant or stimulant, at the end of the day, substance abuse do more harm than good to the individual. So that's why we're saying that. Again, don't forget that most of these substance abuses, whether it's alcohol, whether it's marijuana, whatever, it also reduces immunity. So and it's a risk factor to almost every illness. For instance, let me tell you this one.
And then even after that, a lot of production of funny kinds of alcoholic drink came into.
Of course, and
people were rushing.
Again, when we're talking about drinks, What about some funny set of drugs? Some funny set of drugs. It's not about this cocaine, heroin. What is some funny set of drugs? Common drug people are not consuming. We don't measure drugs. But they probably know the ones we're talking about. People just take them as if it's their way of life, destroying their liver and their kidney, affecting their organs. So that's what we're talking about. Creating more problems. Because look at smoking, for instance. Everything is present in smoking. Long life is not one of them. Then, as if that is not enough, it's a risk factor to even to cancer. So if COVID-19 has always been a respiratory problem, now we have a cellular nervous complication. Then you bring in so many of those tobacco, so many of those foreign substances into the lungs, and then the person becomes more vulnerable. So we are praying to the general public. If there is anything you should take to not getting yourself abused in such substances, up to the so-called alcohol. Yes, you can take alcohol, but with moderation, but not to up those extreme of, I want to take a go-go, I want to take. No. At the end of the day, you have been affected. Even they talk about this, their mokite and all that.
Then at the end of the day, it's not the COVID-19 you'll be back.
No. You are going to come down with a lot of pathology. Because those are risk factors for every illness of diabetes. So you don't begin to take risk in order. Of course, hypertension. You want to have failure. All this one, hear somebody sleeping, wake up. So many things happen recently in my area. So a boy went to take some substance, waiting for his girlfriend. All the youngest time, brother know the answer again. The man died. Name a house. He has taken some of these drugs that so we should not mention drugs. But it's always good to mention drugs.
How you sure I know those drugs?
For instance, people start taking tramadol. The boy took tramadol as I heard, about 5, and the boy died. Of course, you're going to have the liver fail, because the liver may have been overcongested, could not metabolize the drug. You're waiting for the guy, you want to overperform, you want to do perform, and the guy died. A young man, a baba in my area. This thing happened about 2 weeks ago. That's why it's no joke. So substance abuse is another story for another day. For COVID-19 and substance abuse, they are 2 worlds apart. Take note, American smoking rate became the least in the history of America for over 240 years. America is still over 300 million people. For the first time in America, smoking became very minimal because they knew that the war has come. This is it affects the respiratory system. So people are struggling with their dear life. 23 million Americans has been affected. Over 383,000 deaths. It's not funny. What is the population? So that's what we're saying to people. Please, substance abuse, we should forbid it. It's not something we should try. Even though people sell it, make money from it. But like they will tell you, smoking is dangerous to your health, Ministry of Health. So all those things are just out of it. They affect the organs, even the heart. That's why you see most times the heart will fail because the organs will fail. Once all those organs like the kidney, the liver have been affected, the heart will be affected because the kidney that will produce the blood that goes to the heart. Majority of the blood that goes to the heart from the kidney. So once those things are affected, of course the heart will start underperforming, and the patient will start having mobility. The patient start living before the patient dies. So substance abuse is even it kills faster than the coronavirus if you discover it early and there's an intervention. It's a viral illness. In within 21 days, somebody will recover, especially when there's an high index of suspicion and there's early intervention. But where is somebody begin to take substance abuse? It's just basically to sign. It's just like somebody that want to sign debt agreement. It will come, and most people that be involved in substance abuse are this one, whether Europe or America, whether Africa, most of them never got to 60. Majority of them, you know them. Even for the last of Michael Jackson, you don't begin to take so many things. Where would the person get to? So maybe we will have time to discuss substance abuse. It's quite a frightening topic. It's even more dangerous than all other discussions.
And as a closest, doctor, let's talk about the issue of stigmatization.
Yes.
In all of this, because
yes.
you did say that early presentation is key. Once you suspect anything, report yourself to the hospital. But unfortunately, some persons will not because of stigmatization.
So how do you define your stigmatization? When the most powerful man in the world, Donald Trump, the outgoing president of America, had coronavirus.
Did he tell you he had
coronavirus? No, of course, he has always been controversial. A lot of person has been affected with the virus.
Yes.
A lot of world figures. Here, so many governors were affected with the virus.
And his recovery was very fast.
Yes.
Faster than the average person.
I agree with you, even with his age.
That's the story.
So what I'm trying to say is that an illness that has come to stay, just like saying somebody has measles, you will say there's stigmatization.
So we should not be afraid
even the so-called HIV AIDS, even the HIV AIDS are not that. What is stigmatizing about it? So which one is worse? For a man to be diabetic, for instance, you say you are talking about stigmatization, and the man has erectile dysfunction, and the man cannot perform a matrimonial or any form of obligation. Which one kills the man faster? Is it not the erectile dysfunction that may have been emanated from the diabetes? So what I'm talking about is not to talk about a pandemic. An epidemic sometimes became a pandemic. A pandemic is an illness that has crossed 2 continents. So as at February 9th, as at March last year, it was already a pandemic. So the illness is now a global issue. 90 million people are affected. Several millions of people dead. So which one is stigmatizing? I think what we should appeal to the public is that the illness has come to stay. So let's begin to obey the protocols. And if you have any sign or symptoms, present yourself to the nearest hospital, whether private or government hospitals. Don't be saying that, oh, if I go now, they will think that I have this or have that. No, this abuse your mind. Even the doctors are also afraid, the nurses are afraid. Because we're in a pandemic situation. So everything is suspicious. But you go, probably just have cough and catarrh. They brought a boy to me, about 19 years old young man. He was asthmatic. The mother was saying, I don't know whether I don't go carry coronavirus. No, it's asthma. Newly diagnosed asthma. So it's not a problem. So let's begin to present ourselves to the hospital. That's what is key. But let's stay away from those things that can increase the risk of contracting the virus. And let's not think about stigmatization at all. You will know illnesses that can be stigmatized, maybe epilepsy, maybe schizophrenia, maybe somebody has madness and all that. But not the issue of the virus. Even at that, once your drugs are controlling your epilepsy, what is stigmatizing about it? You are not the one that makes illness. Illness to me, as far as a medical practitioner as I am, illness is no stigma. Because most times, apart from your so-called substance abuse, and some other ones that people just say, I want to die, let me be taking that. Most of the illness are strange. Most of the causes of most illness are unknown. So if somebody now have a leg ulcer, maybe due to maybe the immunity or maybe he was diabetic, the person has a CC leg, maybe they cannot go much. It's not true. So you present to the hospital, the surgeon group will manage, the medical team will manage, and let's get healed. So the stigmatization problem is not what is the problem here. The country is in depravity. There's so many hardships in the country. So people are struggling to survive. So to come and tell them about an illness that they may be straight jacketed, that's where we are now. But that's the truth. I've interacted with a lot of young people. Say, I come this house, now wait till I go shop. Now some good day. So at the end of the day, government should make a lot of provision. Palliative asthma, you can see after when they were running after palliative already. During NSAS. It was not joke. So the country, we pray that the country should get better in terms of economy, in terms of awareness, and of course in terms of security. Insecurity has killed more people than the so-called coronavirus. You and I know it. Only not up to 1,400. Do you know how many people have died due to insecurity and crime in even Edo State in the last 1 year? So that's what we're saying, that everything should be all-encompassing. Government should be on deck to see how they can provide a lot for the people in terms of, especially the health care, so that the health care providers will be safe. Then the public, they can give the general public the best service they can receive. But as soon as the vaccine comes, we are using this being able to appeal to the government.
Appeal to the government.
And this is why, Dr. Ojo, we need the vaccine.
No, Dr. Ojo, you will take that vaccine before me.
Of course I will, definitely.
All right, people, we've been trying our best to educate you to help ourselves on how to live with COVID-19. It has come to stay. There is nothing anybody can do at this point. The vaccines, we're still expecting them, even though some other countries have been using the vaccine, and then we're seeing progress. And for those of you who still don't believe, well, we don't know how to reformat your mind so that you can believe that COVID-19 is here. There is even a variant. But if we observed all protocols put on ground by both federal and state governments, I think you and I will be safe. We'll see you again next week. Thank you, Dr. Ojo, for being part of our show today.
It's a pleasure.
And then sorry about your brother.
You are welcome.
All right, bye-bye.